I'm Troy Kirby with a quick look at the 2022 Washington State Legislative Session. The 2022 Washington State Legislature dealt with the subject of the practice of midwifery with Substitute Senate Bill 5765. The bill was heard on the Senate floor on February 14th.
Many of us in this chamber can agree that midwives are an essential part of our healthcare system. Since introducing this policy, I've had the great privilege of hearing so many people's birth stories and the stories of folks who have assisted in home births for folks all around the state. When my younger brother was born, he was born at home in our bedroom with a midwife that my mom and I happened to run into 30 years later, and they had such a fond reconnection. And it really was an example for me of how strong the ties are between licensed midwives in Washington and the families they care for, particularly in areas and communities where folks have less access to traditional medicine or discomfort with seeking care from a traditional doctor, or just because that is the right fit for them. Everyone deserves to make the choices around their birth experience that is right for them. This bill is not about expanding who can support home births, and it's not about abortion. It's about ensuring that midwives, licensed midwives in Washington, can provide a full range of care for their patients who sometimes experience mastitis and need an antibiotic, or who need antifungal treatment, or who need, at the time of their birth control.
The midwife practice and prescriptive authorities controlled by the Department of Health and Administrative Code, not by the RCW creating it and surrounding it. And it's subject to administrative code revision on a regular basis. This seems to be a little bit beyond the scope what the legislature intended originally, but it hasn't prohibited. So that being said, it's fine up to now. What this amendment does is it says that they can't actually practice in the area of abortions. And the point is not that they have that authority now. They don't, either in the administrative code or in the RCW. However, at the same time, we're saying that due to the potential expansion of midwifery into this area here, we'll just simply preclude that aspect from happening and compel them to stay within their lane.
Based on the underlying bill and the current practice or policies around scope of practice for licensed midwives, I think this amendment is currently unnecessary, and so we'll request a no vote.
As you know, we have one of the most liberal abortion laws in the country. One of them, I believe, says only a doctor can terminate a pregnancy, but a healthcare professional can assist. And if I'm not mistaken, we are contemplating changing that to saying just a healthcare professional can do this. So a question comes in is, does midwifery include that?
Senator Fortunato reminded me of something that makes the amendment that I propose as a clarifying amendment important in a lot of different dimensions. There's more than one piece of legislation that would integrate into this topic in the pipeline during this session. And the amendment would have clarified specifically what a midwife's duties are, at the same time clarifying what they're not.
20 years ago, I was Midwife Legislator of the Year. We've had 5 children. The last 4 were all delivered by midwives. Quality of care was excellent, was just from beginning to end, that comfort, the lack of stress. And I will remind the body that midwives do not deliver babies. Midwives catch babies.
And what I can tell you is the continuity of care that a midwife who is a professional in not only a birth, but in a woman's postpartum recovery, they're there to help with what is often very routine things that come from having a baby. Mastitis was listed. There's many other things that a midwife has in their scope. And the other thing I will say about midwives is that they are very cautious about making sure that they are not going outside of their lane.
Our first daughter was breech, so she had to be born by a C-section. We couldn't use the midwives. But our kids after that, we were able to use a midwife. And I will say the positive change in the experience by using a midwife versus the traditional doctor was astronomical. And after dealing with an Evergreen Midwifery has a center there in Kirkland, you kind of get the best of both worlds. You have a midwife, but you're also in hospital setting. In case something does go wrong, you have easy access to expanded care. And after dealing with those midwives, I have 100% confidence that they are capable of doing the things that are in this bill.
This expansion, if we were able to put some sideboards on it, as was previously mentioned, we would be, I believe, all for it.
The bill was passed by the Senate on February 14th by a vote of 27-20, moving on to the House floor where it was debated.
The current reality for midwives, though, is they have challenges being able to provide services for everyone. So if there's a complication that may arise, or they have to advise that person to go to urgent care or anything like that. And this bill really gets at that point, because the reality is delays can be the difference between a minor infection like a UTI or a potentially life-threatening kidney infection.
The bill creates limited prescriptive license extensions and medical device and implant license extensions authorizing midwives to prescribe, obtain, and administer certain drugs, devices, and implants. To obtain any such license extension, a midwife must complete additional study and training. My question relates to abortion. Does this bill authorize midwives to perform abortions?
Thank you for that question. No, this bill does not authorize a midwife to perform abortions. The limited prescriptive license extensions in Section 3 and 6 do not refer to abortion or abortion services.
This bill is very similar to two other bills that have passed off of our House floor, where the change in the terminology of the underlying bill goes from referring to a mother as a individual or a non-gendered term. The other two bills that came forward, we were able to come to an agreement to have both gendered and non-gendered terminology that passed off of this floor. I heard testimony in Health and Wellness Committee that there were individuals where they were born female and transitioned to become a man, kept their female parts, went off of testosterone, got pregnant, showed up at an abortion clinic to have abortive services, and then got offended that it said woman in the abortion clinic. And therefore, we are now changing the terminology for everybody.
A few people get to change our language. This is a good offer for a compromise. I would be inclined to vote for this bill. Without the exception of this amendment, I am an absolute no. Absolute no.
I have a huge issue with being referred to as a gestational parent. And I know I'm not the only woman. I know I'm not the only mother. I'm proud to be a mom. I love that title. In fact, that's the number one job I have. I've had all sorts of jobs throughout my life, but that is the most important job I've ever had, is being a mother. I'm very proud of that. I'm not a gestational parent. I'm not a birthing parent. I'm not a lactating parent. I'm a mom. I'm proud of it. And I'm sorry if some of us are ashamed of that word, but I'm not. And for those reasons, I'm a no.
The bill passed the House on March 3rd by a vote of 61-37, moving on to the governor's office for an opportunity to be signed into law. Thank you for watching the 2022 Washington State Legislative Session.